gonna send it to her.
You were gonna get one of our bad emails.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't get.
I know you are.
All right, we're getting the, yeah, what's that? We're getting the evil eyes from Ms. Culver. The time is upon us to start, so we will call the workshop, 4 o'clock workshop to order. This may be the fastest workshop in history. We put on the legal services based on a conversation that we started at the board meeting, as you recall.
And I apologize that I had to leave early that meeting. I was ill.
I guess I kind of shared my thoughts at that meeting, and I thought I would just kind of back off a little bit tonight and open it up to you guys for your comments, and willing to go wherever we go. So
I'll start.
Okay.
First off, I am very curious to see what we get from. The fact that we're doing an RFP, I don't see that as a negative in any respect or a knock on our current law firm. But I'm curious to see what we get. You know, whenever you get an RFP, you want to see what you do and what you don't get. With that said, I will say this. Like I said, I was not here for that robust discussion, from what I understand. However, I've got. I'm working with Michael Martyr, Greenspoon Martyr, Tina, and her colleagues also, and I've got no problems. If I've got an issue, I pick up Michael Martyr. If he doesn't know something, I'll say I'll get back to you. So I don't feel like there's something that we're not getting. Now, with that said, it's nobody. It would be naive of us, and we all know this, but nobody is going to be Larry. Larry was a font of information. He helped write a lot of the statutes and legislations, and knew it. But God bless his soul. He's not here any longer, and we are where we are today. And like I said, I'm curious to see what we get. But I can't say that I've got any dissatisfaction with either the work product I'm getting or the responsiveness, or advice when I seek it, and the communication I have with Greenspoon Martyr. Which is not to say with anything, there's always room for improvement with anything. But I just wanted to let you know where I am with it, because I was not here for the previous discussion. But again, I'm curious to see what we get with an RFP.
Well, Jay, you said there's room for improvement. Do you have anything specific?
It's, when I say room for improvement, Kelvin,
or is that just general, rhetorical?
That, to a certain degree, it is. Anything. I don't care what you do. I don't care what you do, who you are, and where you are. Anybody can improve and be better at anything. So that's how I say. No, I can't say, to your point, that there is a specific area that I wish they were doing X instead of Y, or A instead of B, or 1 instead of 2. From what I've experienced as a school board member since 2002, relative to what I need from an attorney, I think I'm getting. Now, with that said, I'm not getting what I got out of Larry, but nobody is Larry, and so I don't expect that. It's not a question of level of service as much as I said, depth of knowledge.
Well, just recalling the discussion that we have that was taken in the dais the last board meeting. I think that when Chairman Thacker was voicing a little bit about the communication. I guess from your statement is what you're saying is that you resolved that to your satisfaction.
No, I've just stated it once. I wasn't going to restate all of it again. So.
Okay. Well, I would hope so. I'm
right where I was before.
Okay. Well, my concern is not just for myself. Obviously, I have, I deal with my communication issues and things like that. I'm very pleased my questions get answered, but I want to make sure that for all of you is the same, okay? And if it isn't, I need to know that. Keeping it to yourself is your prerogative, but it would help me, immensely, and I respect it. And if there's something I can do to help that, make that better, of course, that's what, I have no problems, trying to see how I can go ahead and contribute positively.
It'd be difficult for us to communicate with you if we have a problem with an outside vendor, because
this is called a workshop.
Right, no, okay, thank you, Counselor.
This is the time to do it. Making it the fastest workshop, and with no disrespect, what I mean to say is that you're also right now, you're also communicating to me that, hey, everything is great now, and even when I just challenged
I'm
you.
not dissatisfied.
Okay, all right, that's good. I'll take.
I'm right where I was last week. I was just not gonna,
You just don't want to go ahead and hash it out with us here. I respect that.
I mean, I said,
Well, you don't want to rehash it.
I want to rehash it.
Okay.
I thought I was pretty clear.
Well, you know what? To me, it's very important that the client communicates with the attorney. That's something that I always think that you have to confront with courage and conviction. Okay. And I've just come up with some ideas. I gave it some thought, Clarence. And I kind of felt that maybe there could be some things that we can suggest to our attorneys, and I guess they have a representative. Would you mind coming to the table for a moment?
And Michael is on his way. He won't be
Oh,
here. So.
okay. Well, gosh, does that give me license to be long-winded?
Do you know, Tina, how long? I mean, if he's 5 minutes, we could switch gears, because I have another topic. If he's 30
If you want to
minutes.
switch gears, I can go call his cell phone and just get an ETA.
Whatever.
What do y'all want to do?
I'm fine with whatever you want to do.
Or let's just keep going. We're here. It's important discussion.
I'd rather wait for Mr. Martin.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
You can stay here, Tina.
Whatever.
I wanted to bring up, Reuben, would you mind calling Martha? I just wanted to bring up for a quick discussion amongst us and Dr. Pace, the top 10 junior thing,
Yes.
whatever we call it. I think that's outstanding that you started it last year. I think it's outstanding we did it this year. The only thing I'd like to see, and I thought I'd ask Dana, I think Dana was tied up, and I'd ask Martha if she'd stick her head in to one to listen to. Maybe she has some thoughts too. I felt it's a little haphazard how we get people to them, and if maybe we could put a little structure around, maybe they should, I mean, I'll use Michael Rose as an example. I mean, he kind of covers a good bit of the district. If he wants to go to all 5, I think that's great. I think it's a lot to ask him to go to all 5. Should we try and find a way to figure out who will go to which ones? Some of them, like Osceola and Gateway City Commissioners at Kissimmee, several of them went.
Good.
It's kind of a natural. The other one were Cheryl and Viviana.
Cheryl and Viviana came to OHS too.
Right, that's what I'm talking about. But those are kind of their districts that fall to those 2 schools a little bit. So I don't know.
Dana and I had a conversation about this when I first started setting mine up for this year, and she was like, "Hey, what about some dates?" And I said, "My dates are set on whatever Mr. Hawkins and Mr. LaRosa say."
And I guess that's kind of where I was trying to come. Is there a more rational way to do this?
When I talk to them and they say, these are my open dates, and I look what fits for them and then what fits for me, Fred jumped out, he threw 3 dates out there, Mike jumped out, said 2 of them were fine with him,
Yep.
1 of them worked for me, so boom,
There's
that was
your
the
date.
date. And so.
But I do think you have a
But-
great idea
Yeah.
in terms of, I mean, they were a great event.
Yeah.
And I want to commend the board for coming up with this idea. It's something that I don't know that anybody else is doing. Parents and students were very, very appreciative, and the engagement and the partnership between our community leaders, business leaders, and all of you, I think is phenomenal. But I do think by putting a little bit more structure into it and kind of formalizing those invitations, then it would also help our folks that we're inviting to understand what their role is.
Sure.
And the value of these and how they can contribute ahead of time.
Yeah, and I kind of
as
feel like
opposed
the
to us
last school
explaining it when they get
may
there.
not have as many, it's like, I already did 2 of these, really? You want me to go again?
But in celebration, a lot of them didn't know what they were coming from. I coached them. I mean, these are smart people. It took me 2 minutes to coach them through, and they got it.
I'm not saying that you guys didn't do a super job of setting the tone and the stage at the event and helping people understand why they were there. I just know if you were inviting me, I would have felt more comfortable walking into it, kind of knowing that. And I think there were a couple of them that maybe felt the same way, not being critical at all. It was wonderful, wonderful.
I talked to
I'm
most
just
of the
saying, in
ones that
terms
were-
of helping us move it
Yeah.
from great to even more great,
Yeah.
that would be
I'll tell you
a way to do
I'll tell you
it.
what'll move it from great to more great, in my opinion. What we need to do and didn't have.
Great to more great.
Well, I'm
I would've kept
paraphrasing. I look at the people who were there, and they were great people, but we've got, I'm going to pull somebody who this isn't what they do for a living for us, but they lived it. We've got somebody here at the district in the science curriculum department who went to University of Chicago undergraduate. So has actually lived it, been accepted to a top-tier university, and it's good to hear from us and from doctors we bring in and from Amanda, but none of us, even the people, I mean, Dr. O'Leary went to Missouri undergraduate medical school. Dr. Prevost, she went to Mercer for her, which is not a knock on those schools, but we're talking to these students about going to Harvard or Stanford or University of Chicago or Rice, et cetera, yet we didn't have anybody in the room who was an alum from those schools, yet we do have somebody here at the district.
But Dan, I hate to argue with you, but the University of Missouri has one of the most outstanding surgery programs in the country. When Libby was looking at her list of where to apply. So I don't think we can make that, just because it's not Harvard, doesn't mean that it's not an outstanding university.
We're looking at undergraduate though. And so I'm just, because if we didn't have that resource at the district, I wouldn't bring that up. I mean, we have a woman here in the science curriculum department who went to University of Chicago undergraduate, and she is brilliant. She's a very impressive woman. So that's the only reason I'm bringing that up.
Tim, I know you got some comments.
No, it's a good comment, good conversation. I think they went well, and as I expressed to Mr. Booth last week at the groundbreaking, I was grateful for the idea. I think it's really set a really positive tone for the community, and I spent some time with Dana after ours on Friday, kind of debriefing as well, talking about areas that I felt like that we could build upon this, and I think it sounds like we're all on the same page. We want to continue it. We think that it's good. There's opportunities to expound on what's already taken place, to formalize the process a little bit more, to make sure that we have a little bit more handout material, follow-up information available for the students, as well as one of the things that I heard was some of the people that you had invited. I didn't think in that context, which I thought was a really good idea about bringing some business and individuals and stuff like that. So
yeah, I hadn't either. That's kind of why I wanted to have a conversation. I think that's
the original intent, and I know I've spoken with all of you. We've had meetings about this, or we've talked about it in our meetings. That Mr. Arazian, who is the recruiter, he's an Ivy League recruiter. He's the one that said, "Hey, these kids need recommendations from not just teachers. They need recommendations from their school board member, their county commissioner, their city councilman, their state representatives." So I said, "Hey, I know I can get Mike in a room with these guys." So that's what we did. Representative LaRosa, excuse me. So that's what we did. I think that was the original intent. That doesn't mean that we can't expand on it and make it better. Because if there's a doctor in the room that can make a connection with a kid from Celebration, man, that'd be great too. So
well, and maybe the takeaway on that then is that in some of the preparation work, we work with the schools and get an idea. Some of the students, like when we were together on Friday, they knew where they wanted to go. Some don't.
Yep.
And so if we have a student that says, "I want to go to Harvard," which we had one at our last session, maybe then we just kind of look and say, "Hey, do we have somebody that we could directly connect them with, and maybe they should be there or not?" So maybe just a little bit of advanced recon work might bring us in and saying, "You know what, to that young lady, you want to go into Harvard? Guess what? We brought so-and-so here who's actually an alum of Harvard. Spend some time together and let's talk about how to do it." That might be the advanced recon work that we can do to make sure we walk in prepared. And then the other thing that I had mentioned that I think is going to be important is that when the students and families leave, they leave with a list of who is there, full contact information and all that. Dana and I talked about that. I think it'd be valuable for them. They can put it into their portfolio, hang on to that, so as they're preparing that process, they can pull that back out as opposed to trying to find business cards or notes or things like that. So I think we're on the right track.
And I will tell you, having been to almost all of them, at least for a few minutes, I was at all of them. They each had their own unique flavor that was important and valuable to the kids and the parents who were there. For example, to have Commissioner Arrington there with his arts background in the arts, and to have the young lady who was very, very serious about that, could not have worked out any better.
Right.
But we, I think, can be more intentional about that as we move forward. And I also think that some of the stories, for example, at the OHS Gateway one, for example, from Cheryl Grebe, who talked about she was a first-time college grad and didn't immediately go into what she thought she was going to be. That's another experience that was really meaningful to some of those kids. So it can be very valuable across the spectrum, but we can be more intentional, and I think that's maybe where you want it to go.
The one thing that I'm going to your point that I just got the biggest kick out of was the one I did in Celebration. I had Rebecca Prevost, who is in charge of all the medical safety at Florida Hospital here locally. Before that, she ran the pharmacy at Florida Hospital in Celebration and the one in Kissimmee. And she's a pharmacist. She's a pharmacist. She got a doctorate from, and there was a young lady there who she made it clear that she wanted to be a pharmacist, and it just so happened I had a very high-achieving woman pharmacist there, and I mean, the two of them just clicked right away. It was just, I mean, I didn't know that I had that young woman there, and Dr. Prevost didn't know there'd be a woman there who wanted to do that, but it worked really well, so.
Where I've struggled with is the timing. I'd like to get each family, each kid to have a few minutes with the representative and the commissioner. And it was 2 years in a row, we haven't made it all around because Amanda wanted some time, which is fine. Because I think one of the most important things that I want these kids, and I tell them, and Dana's heard me twice,
Yeah.
go Gators. I'm a UF grad, right? And I hear a lot of these top 10 kids saying, UF, I'm all for it. But hey, you're a top 10 out of like 450 kids. Maybe think about like Yale or Princeton or something, and let us help you. That's kind of what I would like these kids to get out of this breakfast. Shoot for the stars, and Amanda's there to say, hey, and you got some of the parents going, I don't know about the money. We're going, hey, we can, especially I know with some of the disadvantaged kids, the money is there.
And it depends on where you end up working. I can tell you in the Northeast, if you've got a Princeton, a Harvard, a Brown, Yale, some of those others behind your name, it's a whole different look you get from employers.
Absolutely.
We did it a little
I would say in
differently.
the city of Kissimmee, it's probably not so much.
Yeah, sure.
But it depends on where you want to go.
We did it a little differently with Mr. Wheeler because he brought a very diverse group.
Yeah.
It was, with you and I think the others, it was kind of you moved from table to table to talk and could not get to everybody. Mr. Wheeler had his people there and said, whoever sparked your interest, whoever really
to them.
felt like
Right.
you made a connection or could make a connection with, you go to them. And that
That's good.
seemed to work well, I think, too, because the pharmacist young lady went to the pharmacist, and I think you had
So you want to be a health professional, it's Dr.
yeah,
O'Leary.
yeah.
Right,
So
right.
I mean, that worked pretty well as another way
We
to do
would
it.
have been able to do our rotation, but the superintendent was so long-winded in her part that no, I'm totally kidding.
I feel like I had to give Comey the hook almost.
Yeah.
doing the
I mean,
celebration. I like
if
the
you want to give your elected time a few minutes, you want to give Superintendent Pace some time, you want to give Amanda some time, Miss Lopez some time.
You want to give
And-
Kelvin less time.
Yeah, and you want to give the kids each a time to stand up and say, because that's kind of your first introduction to them, and that makes it easier.
Well, and that experience for those students, getting the opportunity and kind of being pushed into a situation where they must articulate who they are, where they are, what they think they want to do, is very, very important in a group. That's a big builder for them.
At OHS, I made all the OHS and Gateway kids Calvin was introducing them by their name. They'd come up and I told them, I said, okay, explain, give them your name. If they have their families there, I said, introduce your family members. Say, what you think you want to do, where you want to go to school, and what you're
So you
involved
terrorized them.
Yeah,
Huh?
You terrorized them.
No, I structured it for them, Clarence.
it's like it's just too big for a round table. Like if you just did one high school at a time, if you had maybe the 30 kids, so if you had two parents and one kid times 10. And then your people, so if you had 35, 40 people, you could probably have maybe that whole room type discussion, but when you get into that 60, 70 people, that's too many.
How close do they get held to an hour? I was out of.
They're pretty
I was out
close.
of-
Mine was pretty close.
Can they be a little longer? Can they be an hour and 15 minutes?
Going forward, probably want to start earlier, and first of all, so that you don't get there where all the just makes it a little easier for the commute or something.
Mhm.
Probably get more parents.
I think it's
They can go
invaluable.
before.
15 minutes out of a class extra for this to
Yeah.
me is a time.
Yeah,
very
starting a
well.
little earlier.
Hey, I had one kid that had to run down and come because he was wanting to go to class. His parents were going to be there to meet everybody, but he wanted
I
to
had 3
leave.
kids who weren't there in celebration because 2 of them were making up tests and one of them was on a
Yeah.
field trip.
Sure.
Did we decide how we're gonna do the VIP invites? Did we figure out
No.
how we're doing? We did not. Okay.
And I don't know that we
I
have to
think-
solve it
I
all
think
today.
Okay.
I just
Just
kind of
make
wanted
Dana
to.
will
We'll do it the way I
figure
did
Yeah,
it.
I thought it would be
We'll do
good.
the way I did it.
No, I'll say
I
this.
knew you'd say that.
I heard all of your suggestions, and I think they're excellent. I participated in 2 of them, and I have to agree. I liked how Jay managed his, but I could tell you, we should probably just go ahead and you can take notes and see what parts work, because this is version
First
1,
year.
right?
Either one.
And just make it better, but make this kind of like a new tradition, something that we should be doing
Oh, absolutely.
forward for now on, because it has a lot of marketing, it has a lot of promotional potential as well. Like you said, when these students went up there, I don't think that it just ended that morning.
No, sir.
Clearly,
And-
Representative LaRosa and Hawkins
so-
are enjoying it themselves because they're not.
That-
Right,
oh,
but they're
they
not-
love-
but they're
yeah.
It's
not-
just the second time they've
Yeah,
done
they
it.
love it.
And those folks will do it every year when they can, because they enjoyed it. But remember that these are the juniors are there another year. We have them for almost 2 years.
Yep.
We had such.
And they're great
tremendous feedback.
ambassadors for.
And that
our
was the
efforts.
point with juniors, not seniors.
Yes.
So that these juniors, because it takes that early admission, I was
relationship.
learning all this
Yeah,
too,
that's
it takes that early admission to get into the Harvards, the Yales, the Princetons. So we want to make sure those kids are thinking about it right now, early in their junior year. And if they want Representative LaRosa to write a recommendation letter for them, which he is completely willing to do, he offers, hey, schedule a meeting with me, come sit down in my office. He wants to personalize the letter. That was kind of my whole, but it would work with some chief at Florida Hospital too,
There wasn't a single elected official or community leader who was there who didn't seem to really enjoy it and appreciate it.
They got as much out of
And
it as the kids.
And
They were as
impressed
excited
with
about
our
it. Impressed with our
students.
students.
They were just amazed.
The one thing we can do to improve it for sure is, I noticed between Celebration and OHS. Celebration, I didn't have 20 kids with their parents. OHS, I felt like I had to manage it more as much as lead it. I mean, at Celebration, it was just, you can do, when I had 20 kids, I mean, I had to make sure each kid had an opportunity to speak. I mean, it just, either make it longer or have each school have their own. I don't think it was an
The
attendance
problem with
issue.
each school is getting people,
Yeah, that's the-
getting the,
I was just
The
trying
time
like
you're gonna take
a
from
one shot,
politicians.
These are kids. We got to figure out a way to make time. You're right, Clarence. But
I mean-
I think that we are persuasive enough, and these kids are good enough where we can make the case and we can get people there. If we have to shame them to go, we'll do that.
I'd love to schedule 20 one-on-one meetings with these kids. Like it's a top 10 one-on-one meeting with the representative, but they're never going to get that much
That's
time.
called
But I do
coaching.
think if we can provide them the contact information, as Tim mentioned, when they walk out the
That'd be
door,
better.
then they'll have that and they can schedule their follow-up meeting.
And I think for me, the key takeaway is that we all believe it was valuable. We all want to see it
Yeah.
continue. We have talented staff that is very effective at putting together these events. They have good direction, and they have good insight from having experienced not just one from last year now, but 5 from this year. So my opinion is let Dana and the
and
team
that was my whole
figure it
point,
out.
just to have the discussion.
Yeah, that's good.
But it was nice to see the different flair, because there
Oh,
really was.
absolutely.
Each one of them was different based on, each of you. And that was a nice thing. I mean, it really worked well.
Just have Clarence and go, right?
Yeah.
I
That's
covered
why
it.
it
It's
was so
okay,
good.
Clarence. I did fine.
I will stay away next year
That's
too.
why the
So it seems to be going
No,
very well.
Clarence, we're going to invite you.
I think we can take the input that you guys have provided and
Okay,
make it
good.
make it awesome.
And I think they're better without
It's
Clarence
fun. I
there,
enjoy it.
so-
That's right.
And I gotta say,
But by
you
the
know,
time you eat and everybody talks, I mean, there's
quick.
not a whole lot of time.
the one thing that hasn't come, Dr. Paste was awesome with these kids too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there were kids who wanted to be school administrators. And, at Celebration, we had you and Jim Bowie from UCF so they could talk to public education and university. I mean, so.
We got these politicians there. Do you think an extra 15 minutes would bother them?
No.
So-
We had to get out because.
I think it's more about the kids
Yeah.
and the
It was the
school.
Back to
school,
class.
it wasn't, it wasn't,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think if we had them come at 7:30 for breakfast
Yeah.
and get started at 7:45 and go till 9, you could have it done in a way that makes sense. So
Yeah.
we can look at that.
Yeah, that was all. I mean, I didn't want to beat a dead
Actually, an
horse.
extra 15, 20 would probably be right on.
I would split. I wouldn't have Gateway, and I wouldn't combine Gateway and Osceola. Not only because you're diluting the efforts, and you got to shorten the time for each kid. You got 20 kids at the same time. Usually have 10 in another school for an hour and a half.
And I got valuable information too from the parents when I was sitting down in my small
you guys
round
rushing.
table
Jay,
groups.
but Jay,
combine
but
the St.
combining the
Cloud
schools, I thought it
Harmony,
was,
still called Harmony.
I don't know.
You
I don't
didn't
know.
go to
I don't know.
Celebration. You didn't go-
Correct. I didn't see
You don't have
one
that
school,
perspective.
but I did see an interesting dynamic, with PAFs and OXA, and then with Gateway and OHS, and I like that these students saw each other and the parents. I don't know, and as far as you want a critical mass where you have a good vibe, and a lot of exposure, not just for our students but for our guests as well. So we're talking 20 students plus their families, so we're talking about almost between 80 people, maybe a little bit around there. I thought it was just right, and I didn't see you struggle at all. I mean, you did very well.
I was
mean,
keeping on. I was
But-
watching the clock.
But that, with a little bit more, it was after we were done with that we needed the time for. But the whole interaction that you had with the student, I saw the parents react to you, and it was very positive, Jay. And you know, because I'm on that vantage point, and I saw the students, and I thought it went down very well. I mean, to just go ahead with one school,
Well, I'm
you're
comparing-
dividing that in half.
I'm comparing the celebration to the Gateway Osceola. I didn't feel rushed at celebration. I felt like I was rushing kids. You know, I mean, it was very.
You weren't
I-
rushed. You weren't rushing this one. Believe it. The timing had to be what. That's just my opinion. And Dr. Pace, if you want to say something, I felt that the timing was really good. They're up there. They want to say their thing. They want to have fun, and they want to hear what the next student is going to say. They're very, very curious about.
Okay,
the
I
next
guess
student.
Dana and Dr. Pace went to all or most of them. What do you think about combining a school versus doing them individually? I mean, I don't. You know, I did both. So but I only did 2 schools. I mean, I didn't go everywhere. You guys went everywhere.
I do think there's some value in having some of the students get to interact with other top 10 students and hear from other top 10 students, because they hear from their own at their school. I think if we could add the extra 15 minutes, we'd probably be at the sweet spot.
Okay.
I would agree. I think Harmony and St. Cloud work perfectly together. Liberty and Poinciana work perfectly together.
Maybe we assign the seats next year. Make sure it's
Soxon.
one kid from St. Cloud and one kid from Harmony at each little table.
I think it flowed fine, to be honest.
I felt.
But adding the 15
felt-
minutes
At the
would help.
time, at the time, it's
Forced
probably better than
integration.
splitting the schools.
Yeah.
Force
For the
integration.
benefits that I think.
I felt like I was playing the
And
minute walls
soon
at
enough,
55
we're gonna have
seconds.
another school to add.
Yeah, we'll have to.
Yeah.
So all of them will
Yeah.
have
I'll have to go to that one too.
Yeah.
It's gonna be so
Well,
big, we're gonna have
Kelvin
to
and
have a
I-
top 15
oh, yeah.
juniors.
Well,
Yeah.
talking about the new high school, 2018. That's almost right around the corner.
Yeah.
Well, Amanda had brought up too.
We'll have a senior class, right, and a junior class from the get-go, from what I understood, right? So, yeah.
Amanda had brought up too that there is like the talented top 20. So I don't know if you want to consider expanding the number of students.
Sure.
If we have more time, I got no problem.
It's again about
Then you're-
something
then you're
thinking about our
definitely back
guest
to-
schedules, you know.
Right.
That means we're gonna have to have 7?
The guests
We'd have
won't
to
be a
talk about
problem.
that.
We would
Yeah,
have
y'all
to.
can figure
She
that out.
just
We don't
brought
have
that
Well,
up.
and one last thing I'll throw out to that point, because I was thinking of that a little bit earlier, is the breakfast worked. I think there's a lot of value in how we did it. There's some massaging that can take place, but don't put yourself in a box. Does it have to be a
Yep.
breakfast?
Yeah,
Should it
sure,
not be
sure.
one big
Maybe
event
it's a dinner.
where there's breakouts in
Brunch.
different schools and you're doing it midday or an evening? I mean, so just think creatively about what the right option really is. Is instead of having, you know, a representative or a senator or something like that having to run between 7 different events, maybe going to one event and being able to make it a couple hour thing as opposed to a 1 hour thing. Do we make it a special dinner and get sponsors or something like that from our business community? I mean, so you guys can figure that out, but yes, whatever.
Get the
But
Ivy League recruiters there.
it doesn't have to be breakfast, is my point. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be
anything.
Yeah,
Just the engagement and the interaction.
I think it's great.
and if it
It's a
and if
great
it can
idea.
expand to
Yeah.
top 20 as a result, you know, the limitation with
I think
doing
you stole it
20
from me.
for breakfast is the time and them needing to get back to class. That would be my biggest concern there.
And you know, publishing it, promoting that we're doing this. We want those freshmen and sophomore students, you know, to know that this is going on. Because we want our kids to go to college, right?
I want those kids to go to college.
Well, those kids are going to college.
Right.
But
we want to make sure they know
They
they can
know how
go
to
to
go.
whatever college
But
they
the
want
promotion
And
to.
they know how to get there.
And they know how to
It goes
get
over
there, yeah.
the overall strategic goal of increasing our college going,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Okay.
Okay,
Got it.
thank you all
So
very
Dana?
much.
I'll get on it.
Thank you.
There's your,
Thank you,
there's your
Dana.
ambiguous
Thank you.
answer.
Well done.
Thanks for all you did this year to
Have
make it
fun with
work,
that,
Dana.
Dana.
So,
You
but
and your
specific
team.
ambiguity.
Specific ambiguity.
Michael, we had started a conversation for about
A few
3 or 4
more.
minutes, and then,
I could pick it up from where I left off.
and then we were at Calvin, that's okay.
Accident on I-4.
We were.
Really?
You said you were on your way, so we stopped and switched
Okay,
gears.
thank
So
you.
Calvin, if you wanna, Calvin wanted to wait for you.
And basically what I wanted to share with the board and with our board attorney, superintendent, is that I don't want to just take it for granted because of my satisfaction with the firm and the services they provide in communication. I want to make sure that I can do, or at least make sure from my end that I could put suggestions that will make it, I would like for all of you to have that same experience, obviously. So I just want to, this one thing, that's all it is. A few months back, I remember that we wanted to, ever since this board's been together since 2014, we kind of like a hands-on approach. But what we really enjoy is being in the know, okay? And I see the superintendent and her staff really adapt to that and do a lot of things to the point where, you're only limited by yourself. It is kind of between us. So here, so thinking about, with our board attorney, I remember a situation where we wanted to become a lot more involved with rulemaking. Yes, that is a lot of fun. I know we all love it. And Mr. Boyd, he used technology. He used technology to go ahead and say, you know what? You want to see what I'm doing. You want to see the rules that I'm working on. You want to see how they are edited and how they progress. You want to have you want to have an input. Well, he used technology to go ahead and give us that, that access.
It's been great.
It has been, and and to a certain point, at the beginning I was going a lot, and then all of a sudden I'm like, this is really boring stuff. Can't continue with this. Yeah. So, but
I read every word. Go.
Yeah, I bet you do.
If it got to Calvin,
just like you read every page in the agenda. But here's what I want to say is that perhaps and I had a discussion with Mr. Martyr that maybe something like that can be set up for us. I know for certain that I would like to be able to go ahead and after an executive session, go to my computer in a secure type of manner and say, you know what, I want to see what the filings are here. Because a lot of times when we're in executive sessions, everybody is interested in what the other board member feels about something, and we want to learn from that perspective. So, but for me to really be of greater use for you, and for this board and for this district, I have to have a little bit more access than what I have right now. And so I was speaking with the attorney about maybe something like that being possible. But that's just the beginning. I mean, you can use technology to be able to communicate with your attorney. A lot of firms do. And maybe even get answers yourself. So that's what I want to that's what I want to go ahead and give you that idea to think about. It would be something different, but along the same lines as what Mr. Boyd has been doing. And so, the information is there. You want to see a pleading, boom. What was that proposal for settlement that we discussed? Oh, there it is. Helps you make decisions and be prepared, and maybe even communicate with counsel about what is it that you desire. I mean, it's very important that counsel knows what the client's goals are. And so to that end, we could use technology to improve our communication. And I think that will help the chairman, and it certainly will help me. And I think that you guys gave it a shot. You probably haven't. I know you do because of your technology structure in your business. That's not limited to just real estate. You could do this with law. You could do this with a lot of other service industry. All right, guys.
So call my beeper and send me a fax, and I'll be ready to go.
Along those lines, we have a system that's called iManage, and everything that is in our system on cases, transactional contracts, it's all logged and saved in a system that's easily searched. For certain institutional clients, especially financial clients, we have a case management system where they have to be able to go online and see the status of a case. So the technology is adaptable where matters that are on our system, if we have an open contract or an EEOC matter, or, for example, what just came in last week that was misaddressed, which was actually something I wanted to talk about. It got sent to DeLand. We had a Department of Education initiation of an investigation of the website based upon perhaps ADA violations in terms of the accessibility of the website. School districts have been getting these letters. We're not the only ones. It's not like anything here is being singled out. But we got a letter that went to a different place,
Cross-platform.
and
Cross-industry.
it just came to you, I guess, on Thursday or Friday.
Yeah, it was well below.
Yeah.
It was well delayed.
So we got an extension, but it's the happening of cases, the status of cases, And I think from my vantage point, I think it would be helpful for not only individual board members, but our firm, myself, to have active communication with each board member on what we're doing. Active involvement in the decision-making process. We are, communicating with Dr. Pace and her staff, but since the board makes the final decisions, I don't want to assume that the board members have our input unless it's actually coming from us, which is why I reached out to each of you to make sure that we are communicating on anything that we're working on that is going to require a decision. So it doesn't show up on your desk and you say, what is this? Martyr hasn't called me. I don't know what they're doing. Why haven't I been involved in this? What Kelvin is suggesting is certainly doable. If you feel it would be helpful to log onto our system in a secure manner and look up individual matters that are pending, or if I were to call you and say, hey, take a look at the impact fee issue relating to Monterey, you can see a summary of that, and then we can discuss it. Or it could be, really anything where you can look, go on a secure site and see what's going on in that particular matter at any given time. That's certainly something that is doable, and the technology is available fairly easily to be able to do something like that if that's something you're interested in. But there's no substitute at the end of the day for communication and the board being appraised of what it is we're doing, what process we're in, where we are on things, so that you're able to make the decisions.
Sure. Well, one of the things I shared with you here, I wasn't here for the discussion last a couple of weeks ago, but I'm not dissatisfied with the service I get. If there's something I need, I pick up the phone and call, talk to you, I talk to your staff, etc. Now, with that said, I also did say, like anything, there's always room for improvement, but I can't say you should do anything, and that's more of a rhetorical statement. There's not something you need to do this better or that better, etc. But just like I would tell anybody, I don't care. Even when I coached basketball, my teams won by 20 points. I said, you can improve on something. There's always something to improve on. So.
Sure. I'll give some quick comments. First of all, the technology piece and leveraging technology to have greater access and understanding of what's going on at a more granular level, this type of stuff that you guys are working on for us is good. And it's a good way to leverage the tools we have at our disposal so that each individual board member feels comfortable in whatever those pieces and parts are. So that's good. I'll kind of break down my things. I wrote down 5 different things. Technology and access was 1. Communication was 2. Billable hours 3, educational knowledge 4, and comfort and connection for all parties involved are the important things. And I said something very similar at the last board meeting when Mr. Thacker brought it up, is I said, for me, I can make an individual decision based upon what I think is best for me as an individual board member. But I think part of the strength of what this team has been able to do is that we respect and value one another, and that we work to try to figure out how the body as a whole can actually function at its greatest level. And so for me, I guess kind of working backwards then is that, I want to make sure that, and I appreciated your email earlier and responded and said, yeah, we can get together and talk and communicate on a regular basis. I want to make sure that all 5 board members feel like that they have the communication and the comfort, including the superintendent as well, I should say, with that, and that the ebb and flow is effective for all parties. And I think it has to be, because if it's not, not to point out Mr. Thacker, but I think it's very, clearly there was something that was bothering him, previously. If it's bothering him, it bothers me, is the simple truth of it. If it bothers Mr. Wheeler, it bothers me, because these are my team members that I need to be able to work with and interact with to make good, sound decisions. So that would be one part for me. The other thing, which is, and I think Jay hit a little bit on this with his comment about Larry earlier, is we're all busy. And I think we're probably sitting with some of the busiest people that we know right now. So the speed and the access for information and dialogue is important. Superintendent and I joked with one another a couple months ago about, like her schedule, my schedule, and making sure that we get synced up on things. And part of that is also a refining process. Okay, how do we figure it out? She knows when I like to meet. I know what she likes. She knows what lattes I like to drink, and so we figure out how to make it all work.
Are you a pumpkin spice guy?
Pumpkin spice. I don't do that. Right, Stacy? I don't do that, do I? The access to information is important. This is about me personally at this point. What I always felt was very helpful to me is that if I called Mr. Brown and I said, hey, I don't understand this, this came up, what do I need to be thinking, what do I need to know, what do I need to be concerned with, or should I be? He had that wealth of knowledge at his disposal on the fly to be able to respond to me, and it wasn't I need to look it up, I need to get back to you type of thing. You and I haven't interacted that way, so that's not a slight on you at all, but it's a comment of what I've been used to, and I think what I would be looking for in how I'd interface with you or any person on your team to make sure that I feel like I'm getting the speed and the information that I want. Because much like you, you're bouncing between clients, responsibilities, management, family, life, court, all the different pieces that you have to deal with, just like I have to deal with. And so, the time and the speed of that is important. The last piece, which I thought was something that kind of I think helped with it as well, with Mr. Thacker's comment at the last meeting was, as a board, we're always looking for the way that we can be the most efficient with the dollars that we have, and making sure that as we're looking at what we're spending in any arena, including in legal fees, that we're watching every single penny and every single cent to make sure we're getting the full leverage and strength out of that for the benefit of the taxpayers. And so that was one of the ideas that I actually extracted from the conversation last time that I thought would be of value as well, is we have, I'm not necessarily sitting in there and weeding through every single document that comes through. Is the proposal that was brought up something that would help us make sure that we have good control and oversight with that process? And then the last one that I'm just kind of working up on, which I already hit on, is just the communication and making sure that that happens effectively for each one of us. And I think about it in the context, again, I'll use a superintendent. She has to adapt what her communication is based upon the flavor of the individual board member. And I hear her say all the time, I have to check with my bosses or whatever. And she's very intentional about making sure, Kelvin likes to communicate this way, she's going to deal with it that way. Tim likes to meet this way, she's going to do it that way. Thacker likes this, whatever. So just some feedback for you from kind of what I extracted from our conversation last time. I think that for me, the last thing that I want, I've expressed it in a workshop, I expressed it in the board meeting last time. For me, none of this is ever personal. I just don't I make decisions based on, process, procedure, policy, but not personality. And to me, that's just, I don't have time for it. I do it in every aspect of my life. I have to be objective. I can't allow subjectivity to guide and dictate how I'm going to respond or react to things. So none of this is personal. And for me, whatever we take away from this conversation, whatever we do, I want to make sure that, as I shared, we get the best end result for all parties involved. And in fairness, that's you as well. Because I look at, as I talk about the team, there's the 5 of us that are elected ultimately to make all the decisions, but we layer on a superintendent and council as part of our team, as trusted resources and advisors for us to make sure that the implementation and execution of overseeing the district is taking place, as well as on the legislative, as well as on the legal and litigation side. So you guys are valuable parts of this team, and all of these pieces need to work properly, just like it would need to work properly for the superintendent, or the board wouldn't be able to function as well as it does. So that's kind of my big global thoughts, just to kind of lay everything I've been thinking on the table. If I were to summarize all that, I would say that I'm open to whatever's going to work for everybody. And Mr. Thacker, with all due respect to you, if you feel like we need to continue to explore, massage, or talk through other aspects of that, I'm open to it, because I value and I respect you as a peer, and I want to make sure that all of us are getting what we need and how we manage this process. And I hope I didn't called you out or made you uncomfortable. I'm just trying to be very objective in how I go about this,
I appreciate it.
and very fair to consider
in response
everybody.
to this, my job, and I expressed this to Mr. Thacker yesterday, I'm not going to assume that you know what's going on. I have to make the assumption that you don't know what's going on, and it's going to be my responsibility to keep you informed. I'm going to do that until you tell me to stop. okay? So I'm gonna have to assume that it's my responsibility to reach out to you and engage you in what we are doing so that you can ask those questions. And that's why I want to be able to meet or talk to each of you periodically so I can update you on what we're working on, tell you what I think the issues are. And then you're in a better position to ask questions if I'm keeping you informed. And that is what my plan is, at least in the near term, is to go soup to nuts through what I feel are the significant issues, or even not necessarily significant, and take 30 minutes or an hour of your time periodically to keep you informed. I'm going to do the same thing with Dr. Pace. We've made, an agreement that I'm going to be meeting with her regularly. I've also said that I will look prospectively or retrospectively at the billing, and if there are questions, I will answer them myself. And what I've mentioned is I'm general counsel to a number of companies where my job is to review legal bills and answer clients' questions from other counsel. So it's not a role I'm unfamiliar with, and I hate waste. I hate inefficiency, and I hate overlap. And I don't like to see it in my own bills. I don't like to see it in the bills I review of others. So, if I see that, I'm going to deal with it proactively. And I've told Dr. Pace that I will take a look at where we are and what's pending, and I will, make sure that that we don't have any loose ends or any misunderstandings or people that don't think their questions are being answered. That's going to be my responsibility to initiate that and to make sure that we're staying on task, and I will do that. So, all I can do is, it's taken me 5 or 6 weeks to get my hands around. I mean, it really literally started September 3rd, and then going forward to get my hands around everything that's going on.
Sure.
And I have a pretty good handle now, and I've been working on a number of issues, where I'm directly involved. And so we'll just go in that direction, and I will communicate or meet in any way that is comfortable to each of you. It's my obligation as an attorney. Attorneys will tell you that we're the ones that have to adapt to the clients, not vice versa. So if you have a time that's convenient for you, I'll arrange my schedule. If it's in person, over a latte, if it's on the telephone, however you like to receive the download is how
I like my coffee black.
Okay. However it is you want to get the download, that's how you'll get it. So, and that'll be my approach, going forward until.
Let me just
someone decides to change
give
it.
my 2 cents since everybody else has kind of went. I wrote a few things down as well. I'm generally satisfied with the service. I think I wrote this down just before Tim said it, but the communication piece is on me. I probably haven't communicated as much as I did with Mr. Brown, but that probably has to do with familiarity and those kind of things. With you, Mr. Marb, I could certainly communicate with your staff. I wouldn't have any problem with that. But that piece would be on me, so I'm generally satisfied. I think Mr. Wheeler brought it up, and look, you said you didn't want to be our attorney by default, and I don't want you to be our attorney by default. So I want to see how this RFP process goes out. I didn't like the way the last meeting played out, and I think I've said it in an email, and I'll say it again. This is going to be an awkward process, and I've thought about it quite a bit since that meeting and since I crafted the email. That it's not nice to be in your shoes and your associate's shoes right now. But I think that's part of the process that we're going to have to go through.
Hey, listen, we're big boys and girls. We can take it. Some take it better than others. I just want a respectful process. I will do whatever I can to share information, to be available, to answer questions. That's all I ask.
And I want to say
that we have a respectful process.
Here that you have made yourself available to me, and I appreciate that.
And I will do so. And like it or not, I'll be calling you. I'll be reaching out to you. I want to do, I look at our role is to facilitate your role. Your role is to make decisions as a board. My role is to advise and make sure that you have the necessary factual and legal input in order to make the best decisions you can. And if I don't give you the best factual and legal input so that you can ask the right questions, ultimately you're the fiduciary of the voters. And so that will be what I will do. And hopefully, we'll have good dialogue, and I'm sure each of you have a different perspective and different questions that you're going to ask, and we'll do just fine working in that vein.
I'm good.
If I may,
Sure.
I did have an opportunity to meet with Mr. Martyr this week. We'd had a little bit of a difficult time connecting, but we were able to work through some issues. And I basically asked for 3 things, which he's kind of talked about 2 of those here. Number 1, I feel like I need at least a bi-weekly meeting with Mr. Martyr so that I can understand where we are with pending issues, what he sees coming down the road, and ask questions that I may have that would be better face-to-face as opposed to a quick text or a phone call. He was agreeable to that. I did ask for him to review the bills. I've been, over the past 6 months, kind of been in a position of trying to look at these with staff, and I don't know, it's not my level of expertise the way these are done to do that, and we're even going to talk about potentially looking at the way billing is presented to us. I've tasked my leadership team with saying that if we need legal services or have legal questions, I want it to go through the senior leadership team, so that when we get a bill and it's about a facilities issue, I can give it to Mr. Clinch and say, run this by your staff, make sure these things are accurate, these are phone calls that were made, whatever. Same thing with, there's a student services issue, HR, whatever, so that we're tightening up our process on that end, if he can help us out with the review of the billing and that kind of stuff on his end. And then finally, I have tremendous respect for Amy and Tina and Cherish and the work that they're doing for us, but there are times when we're dealing with attorneys from developers, attorneys from the county, from other places where I need Mr. Martyr or a senior member of his firm sitting beside me, answering those questions and helping to guide our work. Love the work that the other folks are doing to support us, have tremendous respect and appreciation for it, but there are times when I believe that he's our representative and we need him to be there. So those are the things that I've asked for as your superintendent from your attorney.
And I will be on those things. We had some issues that came up that I think we resolved successfully by doing just that, and that'll happen.
I think that, having this board, prior to Dr. Pace coming here, obviously we went through a superintendent search. That, like anything, there's ups and downs, et cetera, but I think the 5 of us handled it all very professionally with purpose. And I think that your team has also been very professional, and I appreciate it. And I think that just, we are to that end, we are all in this to improve the school district. And in my conversations with you, Mr. Martyr, I believe that you want to see that as well. So I think we all have the same end goal. Granted, you are not the fiduciary, as you said, but I think we're all going to be professionals, and that's all we can ask. And if somebody's got an issue, we pick up the phone, we ask a question, we say, and that way there's nobody playing any games. I think that's just fair and honest. And to your point, we're all big boys and big girls. I think we're going to conduct ourselves like that. So, and I appreciate the communication you've had with me, your staff has had with me, and you reaching out to me with your assistant today to schedule some time. So thank you.
Just to wrap it up, I guess 2 weeks ago, the feeling was that I had dissed on the 4 attorneys, Tina and Cherish and 2 and Amy, and that was not my intent at all. I thought I'd even called out their names and said I respect the work they do and I appreciate the work they do. But I had issues. I've still got some issues. One thing that was mentioned a minute ago was an impact fee related to Monterey. I've heard about that. I have no idea what it is. Impact fee raises my ears that maybe the board should be involved in what direction we're going with that. I don't even know what the issue is. I've got to know that as a board member.
Well, and I take responsibility if we've not communicated well with you. It's
But I
been
don't think it's a
senior
super-
citizen impact fee issue that
Okay.
has been ongoing, but we were
So-
able to get it finally resolved today.
So, okay. Mr. Clinch is having an issue with concrete payment of 10 cents versus 20 cents of whatever. Probably not that big a deal, but impact fees have pretty wide-reaching impacts. I don't even know what this issue, I don't even know what this issue is. But it impacts collections down the road, it impacts, we can set precedent pretty quickly. So it's pretty
I believe
important.
we're up to about 9
I think it was 10.
applications that
I
have
think
been,
it's
or
about
10 process, that are either
Impact fee
in process
waivers.
or have been processed.
55 and
for
orders.
55 and older communities.
Deed restricted.
And
And
that's
they're
part of
deed
my
restricted.
job, Clarence, or Mr. Thacker, to make
Clarence
sure
is-
that. you-
Clarence is fine.
That's part of my responsibility, getting into this job and learning how we need to interact. That's part of my responsibility, not your responsibility to ask what's going on, because
I don't know what to
I've
ask.
got, yeah, right, you don't know what to ask until I tell you what the issue is.
Right.
You may not even
I
know
don't
that
even
the
know,
issue
yeah.
exists until you find out about it on an agenda. And that's what we're talking about in terms of communication, and why I need to interact with each of you to say, okay, we have this, and this going on. Here are the issues. Here's what's happening. So that when it comes decision time, you're not saying what's Monterey or what's, Mystic Dunes or whatever.
Well, maybe we all should know before it's decision time. So
Correct.
we have input in.
Correct.
So you don't go negotiate something and something we don't.
No, I meant sort of before decision time, that you're involved when it's happening.
Okay.
So that when we get to decision time, it's not, what is this?
Yeah, well, I will apologize to and Cherish and Tina and Amy. It was not my intent to personally slight them. I apologize for doing that, so.
For what it's worth, I'm gonna agree with you on most of the stuff. I'm gonna push back on one thing. Us needing to know about these issues, impact fee being a good example, 100% agree. And to me, that's not just a Martyr thing, that's both sides of the house, right? We've got to make sure that we're apprised of what's going on, we understand what it is. And some of these things, each one of us are responsible for everything, but each one of us probably also has something that really is really, really important to us. And so that's the responsibility of both superintendent and our council to make sure that they understand, hey, if this is an issue like this, I better call Booth because I know Booth is really going to be teed up on this one, right? Or Soto's really going to be paying attention or whatever. We all need to know, but we also have these little personal nuances,
Absolutely.
right? And so clearly that's one for you. Impact fee would be one for me as well. The thing I do want to push back a little bit on, though, is for what it's worth, I don't feel like you said anything inappropriate. My memory, and I could be wrong, my memory of the meeting is that you tried to be as fair and objective as you could. I do not feel like you put people down at all. I feel like you were very intentional about saying that the work that was being done was good, but that there were some breakdowns that you were experiencing and that you wanted to address them. And I think that's important because, let's talk about precedent. Board members need to be able to express how they feel about instances and about circumstances and be able to do it in a fair, honest, and objective way with respect and dignity, of course, and not feel like that afterwards they have to apologize for it. And I don't feel like you did, and I don't know, maybe your team does. I don't know what translated and all that. But I'll just tell you, as one board member to another, I felt like you tried to be as fair and objective and forthright as you could be, and this is something that's very important to you. It should be important to you, and I think I and the balance of the board lent our support to the concern, and I don't think you have to apologize. Is just my opinion for what that's worth. But I think it sounds like where we're at right now is that everyone's okay, maybe not good, but okay.
I'm good.
Well, you're good. If that's the case, though, the key for me then would be to go back to my original comment. I have no concern that you and I are going to figure out our best way to communicate with one another. We'll work on that. You've already made some initiatives, and I'm appreciative of that. What is important to me, though, is that, as you pointed out, wanting access to additional information, particularly with your expertise, as you pointed out, wanting to make sure you know about issues up front and that there's effective communication, so on and so forth. I'll say it again. I don't care about Tim Weishire solely in this. I care about the Osceola School Board in this. And so if one of my peers is challenged, then that means I'm challenged, and that means that I need to understand what's going on because I need to make sure that we're all getting the service that we need. And with all fairness to you, and I've expressed it to you personally, and I said it publicly, I want you and your team to be treated with dignity and respect. You guys are valued experts. You have an incredible reputation in the industry that you represent. I think we're very fortunate to have a firm with the stature of yours by our side. That is not lost on me one bit. I think we're fortunate to have you with your expertise as well. And now we have to figure out how do we make all of this work as we work through these next number of months going through this RFP process that all the team members are getting what they need. That's my takeaway, and I say it because, look, if I were in your shoes, I'd want a board member to stand up and say the same thing that I was saying, because I feel like it's what you deserve, and I don't feel like you did anything wrong by expressing your viewpoints, and you have my support in that.
I have an open door. You all have my phones and my texts and my emails. You can text me anything that's important. You know, I'll make it a point of responding. If it's an email, I'll respond. If it's a phone call, I'll respond. So, you know, if you need me, you can get a hold of me almost any time, and I'll be responsive. Or you'll know when I will respond if I'm tied up in something else. And of course, I'm going to reach out to each of you and do what I discussed, which is to inform you.
Yeah. I'll say one last comment. From Jump Street, from when everything first happened with Larry, you've done nothing but reach out and communicate to me. I've never had an issue with that thus far. We probably need to continue to build on that, but I think it's worth noting that at the same time, I mean, I was in Puerto Rico getting communication from you about us needing to meet and communicate and all that, so I'm good in that regard.
Go ahead and close that up. I had the one issue that I brought up on the top 10. Anybody, we've got a couple minutes. Anybody got any other things they want to bring up just for general discussion?
Just a
Everybody
quick
make sure they vote for the half-penny sales tax.
I have a quick comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if it'll be quick. I'm not good at that, am I?
Sure.
No.
The comment is actually a compliment. The board sat around a number of months ago. We had the concept, and Chairman, you brought this up about let's just have workshops where we bring up ideas. Let's figure out what are some things that we can be doing. And so I'm grateful for that concept. And then Superintendent, I'm grateful for the implementation of what I believe we're calling the Bright Ideas concept that rolled out as a conversation piece from that. I'm sure the whole board is aware of it, but I wanted to just thank you for that as well, because this is where 5 minds, 6 minds are better than one, and when we get together and come up with these ideas and then we can see them come to fruition, I think there's positive things that can come from that. And I talked with some staff throughout the district at different points since that launched, and they were saying, oh, well, what about this, and what about not ideas yet, but just different things. And I said, we want that exists. You need to just go on and let us know those type of things. The mechanism has been built for those very ideas. So I want to thank you for the implementation of that. And Chairman, I appreciate you just creating the format for us to sit and just kind of brainstorm things together.
And along those lines, and I think we may have briefly discussed this before when we were discussing the open board workshop, is having one of these workshops where it's kind of an open community workshop, where if you have something that you want to address the board on and that we can kind of talk about, that wouldn't be in the more structured kind of actual meeting on the dais, that we could maybe do that. Maybe once a quarter, twice a year, once a year.
Like a community forum.
Like a community forum. You come, you say, hey, I've got a problem with
Community
this,
staff.
or I don't like this, or hey, here's an idea about this, and we could maybe listen and take some input on that.
Is that a new idea, or is that actually discussed? Because I don't remember it.
I thought
I'm
I thought maybe we discussed it a little bit. It may not be something that we want to do. It may not work because it's hard with all 5 of us and all that.
I don't have a problem with
And
that.
here's something I've got, ever since I got elected.
Careful what you ask for.
Oh, I know.
Here's something, ever since I got elected, I thought would be a good idea, but we've never really done it. If we could, there's 5 of us, if we could maybe 5 times a year have board meetings, have one in Celebration, have one in Harmony, have one in Point Siena, one, downtown Kissimmee, one in BVL. I think that'd be good for the community.
You know what? That would, I think, if we did that, that would take place of this what I just was talking
Right,
about.
and then people, I think that now.
Almost town hall meetings.
Yeah.
Town hall
Well, we
You
could
ready to
have a
take this
workshop
show on the
beforehand.
road, boys?
Yeah.
We could have a workshop before.
There'll be a
I
song
think
in advance.
having one meeting every other month, at a different location where that community can come out. And I know that's a burden on staff, they gotta drag everything there, et cetera, but
The problem becomes the taping, particularly in terms of video. Not every place has video access. I mean, like some places do.
our
Like, we know
theaters
we
have
can go to-
auditoriums.
Well, what if we don't do the official meeting? We did continue, because you got all that, but what if we do have a town hall type meeting as a board? Once every 2
and
months
you
or
do have to be
something, in
careful what you
addition
ask
to-
for, but you know what? That's what we signed up for, man.
And that's what they're,
Let's not and just say we did.
Dr. Pace, though, with the taping,
Something's really
don't we have
sound
theaters and
That's all I'm
auditoriums that are set up
you
for
can
that?
try it if it's a disaster.
I mean,
Sorry,
we've
Reggie.
got professional theaters and auditoriums. I've got to believe that.
Well, the other thing too is we're not required to videotape our
No, we are
meetings.
not.
That is
Yeah,
not the
yeah,
requirement.
yeah.
So that, we don't want to use that as an impediment to it.
No.
But,
Well, I
you know,
wouldn't
maybe
care if we
it's
did
a
one additional.
workshop or something.
So your idea is saying you have the actual meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
The actual this
And you
meeting.
can
It's been
record it
done
on
another-
disc and
it's
then
been
run
done
it on
another
line
At
afterwards.
Harmony High School Auditorium. Like, we
Celebration
set up 5
or-
chairs
or
and we go
Gateway or
through our
whatever.
whole rigmarole.
Do it at the auditorium. Do it in the auditorium.
I
Right.
think your community would potentially, let me talk to staff and
Yeah.
perhaps bring back some
You know what?
ideas
That's
to
kind of an
you all.
interesting idea.
I like more of the town hall concept as opposed to the
That's
actual
good,
meeting
too.
too. If it's easy.
I'll tell you why I do is that everyone knows where the city council meets, where the city commission meets, where the school board meets, where the county commission meets. They know where our various chambers are. They know when to come. I would not like the idea of being at Liberty High School and then having constituents from BVL showing up to our meeting here and going, "Oh, I didn't realize it was a different
You let 'em
location."
know.
I know you let them know, and it's noticed. All the meetings are noticed, but
still happens.
it's routine. People
Yeah.
are used to. I mean, you know,
Sure.
you get in your car to drive to
So
your
maybe-
office. You
maybe
don't
the
think where you're
town
going. You
It's
just
so
know where to
routine,
go. I
we
mean,
fill
it's-
this room all the time. Come on.
well,
Let's not say we did.
If I could, let me
Yeah.
talk
Right,
to
right.
staff
See
about
what-
some things that would make sense
Bring
and we'll
them
bring back some
mountains.
You
ideas.
know where most people would come, in District 5, buddy.
Let me just make a quick comment on the school funding referendum. You know,
I voted for it.
good. You should. You know, here's the. I mean, I'm hoping that it's just. I'm not happy with the lack of promotion, but you know, it's just I've been asking around when I go to the courthouse and the other attorneys and other people, and they tell me the first time they see it is on the ballot. You know, so anyways, I'm just saying that
What are you talking
whenever you have an opportunity to promote this, Tim, you got to make sure that people know that they vote for it. That our district, we got 30 schools that will be greatly improved because of that. So just want to go ahead and put that out there, all right?
I
Everybody
will
knows
share
that
with
I'm
you that
promoting.
as of today, we've done 100 informational sessions at schools and meetings and community things that's around the district.
I think that's
That's just the 100 you know about, not the ones I'm doing. And
That's just as a leadership team,
Right.
strictly informational type
Informational.
sessions.
That's great. Thank you, and thank your whole team that has done 100 of those.
And
You know, I
Dr.
certainly
Pace,
agree.
did
We
you
can-
want
let
to
the
vote for it
citizens
today?
decide.
I did. In the meeting we were in.
Hey, I just wanted to share that. That's
I did
it.
yesterday.
No, we appreciate that.
Okay, I mean,
It's
I'm not saying
important.
nothing is being done, but you know, I'm doing
Right.
my own kind of polling.
There was
No,
some
that's
intent
important.
to coming out towards the end, but that's
Well, here's the thing.
right, wrong, or different. I mean,
Here's the thing. Okay, I've gone to several of the early voting, and I haven't seen signs on them. You know, those little yard signs that we all put together. As a matter of fact, the
Pick
sign
them
that I
up.
see every day is the one that's in front of my house. That's it. I could drive all the way over here, all the way down Neptune. I wouldn't expect to see
Go to
one down street,
Celebration.
right?
Go to Celebration and see some
There's
signs.
a bunch on Neptune. There's a bunch on Neptune Road. Is there some at my
There
house?
are some at the early voting site in St. Cloud.
Celebrations.
I did not place them there, but
I
they
did
are
in
there.
Celebration.
I'll just say I wish there wasn't as much promotion with the presidential election. That's my 2 cents.
Oh, my God.
Gary
May I
Johnson,
say that
baby.
we've got Harmony's
Okay, Johnson,
choir
yes.
group here, and they're
Let's
going
go
to
see
be
him
waiting
play.
to perform for you all.
Oh, they're waiting.
We stand adjourned. Thank you all very much. We will reconvene in 22 minutes.
Oh,